Hi, what's going on guys, it's me Tux, and on this beautiful day I want to talk about Killua Zoldyck. More specifically about what is his power level in relation to other characters from Hunter x Hunter. So let's just get right into it. Killua has an extremely versatile set of special abilities. While most characters usually just have their 1 or 2 Nen abilities, Killua, mostly thanks to his Zoldyck training he went through as a kid, has got plenty of other stuff to rely on before we even get to his Nen. First, his Rhythm Echo. It unfortunately doesn't really have many feats, but it still seems like a pretty solid distraction. It worked even against Sop as it allowed Killua to land an attack, so it's not entirely useless even against hunters with Nen. Snake Hands allowed Killua to one-shot a Chimera Ant soldier, though keep in mind that it is before the ants unlocked Nen, which might make it sound like it's not really as impressive. However, getting through an ant's exoskeleton so easily is actually pretty impressive regardless of whether it was amped with Nen or wasn't. Ramot without Nen could take Thunderbolt from Killua and Rock Paper Scissors from Gon without even passing out. Now keep in mind that Rock Paper Scissors just an arc ago was making even Razor struggle. And this Ramot feat isn't really an outlier either, as we've seen exoskeletons of other regular soldier ants being durable enough to tank punches from Things, who's not only an enhancer but also second physically strongest Phantom Troop member in general. So yeah, they're pretty durable in general. Killua being able to actually deal with the durability of ants without even resorting to his Nen abilities is pretty insane. Now Killua also has these claw hands, which he uses mostly in the beginning of the series, but we see them even later on. They're kinda similar to snake hands in that they have feats of getting through ants' exoskeletons, but after his second training with Bisky, Killua actually becomes capable of taking out ants with just his regular hands alone, so this ability becomes kinda redundant. Killua, like the other Zoldicks, is immune to poisons and has tolerance to electricity. This is kind of a niche advantage that could come in handy in some matchups, but not really often. For example, Chrollo with his bent knife won't be able to do much to Killua, or even Geru from Zodiacs, since she's literally a poison hunter, so I'm assuming she also got some poison related abilities. Aside from those, however, I can't really think of any other matchups where this would be useful, so this really won't come up much in fights. Killua's also got this weird ability of being able to dislocate his joints without it really having any negative impact on him. He used this to escape from matchy strings, so there are some matchups that I could see this play a role in as well. Next, we've got Killua's famous yo-yos. This is just a really handy mid to long range option for an otherwise short range fighter that Killua is. Even a hunter as experienced as Shoot was amazed by Killua's use of them, as Killua was countering Shoot's hands effectively with the yo-yos before he got his left eye sealed. And Shoot's hands have pretty impressive speed on their own. They forced Yuppie in his tentacle mode to go on the defensive and even prevented him from finishing Shoot off for a moment. Now frankly, Yuppie's tentacles don't have any crazy speed feats, but they essentially blocked an entire exit and forced Morel to sacrifice his own weapon in order to just escape from that room, so it's not like they were slow either. Anyways, AP wise, the yo-yos are not really that ridiculous. While on one hand they were too much for someone like Sub to handle a direct hit from, we have seen Palm pretty much just punch them into dust. So you could say that any decent enhancer could probably just do the same. But since Killua can channel his electricity through them, they would still be useful even in those cases. He could use them against opponents who can tank a direct hit from the yo-yos, as Killua could just paralyze them by electrocuting them. Now we get onto the main source of Killua's power. Killua is a transmuter, and although he has a dual affinity for transmutation and enhancement, as confirmed in the Nen chart created by Togashi, it only means that Killua is just as good at learning both enhancement and transmutation. But transmutation is still the only category with which he can reach maximum efficiency. In enhancement, he only reaches 80% efficiency, so techniques that make use of transmutation are still the ones that he is most suited for. And as it stands, every Killua's Nen ability is built around changing the properties of his Nen to make it similar to electricity, thus transmutation. The abilities in question are Lightning Palm, Thunderbolt, and Godspeed, which is basically an umbrella term for speed of lightning and whirlwind. Lightning Palm and Thunderbolt are essentially just basic lightning attacks, with Lightning Palm being short-ranged while Thunderbolt can be used basically at any range. While their AP is not really that great, they've never failed to paralyze their opponent, which seems to be their main purpose anyways, so these will come in handy no matter the matchup. Now Godspeed is the ability that truly elevates Killua's standing in the world of Hunter x Hunter. Firstly, Speed of Lightning is an ability which drastically increases Killua's movement speed. While the boost is quite tremendous, we've seen that even Tsubone, without using her Nen ability, can keep up with Killua. Though if Killua is running on a straight road, even she can't keep up unless she uses her Nen ability. With her ability activated, Killua actually is slower than her as long as at least 2 riders are powering her up. Whirlwind is the other half of Godspeed. Well, I say half, but it truly makes up like 90% of what makes Godspeed so OP. It is by far the most broken technique in Killua's arsenal. Unlike Speed of Lightning, this ability works automatically without Killua's conscious control over his movements, and the speed at which it operates is nothing short of insane. How it works is that Killua programs a specific response into his Nen to a stimuli of his choosing. For example, he programs into his Nen that his hand punches anyone who gets into 1 meter perimeter around him, or that he has to pinch his fingers together once a malevolent intent in enemy aura appears between them. These pre-programmed responses are so fast that even Royal Guard Yuppie could not do a thing against them, and Killua was able to just get off his combos uninterrupted on him. Now the interesting thing is that Killua can use it just for generally moving around as well, and I think a lot of people miss this. Killua can program moving around as his response through Whirlwind as well, as he certainly does so against Poof when he jumps away once Poof flies at him in order to attack Komugi, and Killua also most likely uses Whirlwind when moving towards Yuppie as well. In the Poof scene, a lot of people assume that Killua just used Speed of Lightning to move away, which is probably because the anime removed the narrator calling it Whirlwind for whatever reason. Following that scene, we get Poof admitting that he would be inferior to the speed of Whirlwind Killua even if Poof was at full power. This means that in a fight, Killua could use Whirlwind for all his movements, from running away to throwing punches and kicks, or even for just closing the distance between him and his opponent. As for how long he can last using the Godspeed abilities, after the Yuppie fight, the duration of Godspeed is shown to last practically an eternity, while maintaining a similar level of performance all throughout it. Therefore, outlasting it isn't going to really be a legitimate strategy of countering Godspeed. The election arc yet again shows that Killua's Godspeed timer has massively improved when he's shown using it for 10 minutes straight, so essentially Togashi doubled down on it. Now when it comes to Killua's portrayal, the common arguments used to downplay him are pretty much all from the election arc. Illumi and Hisoka have both seen Killua's Godspeed, yet still remain fully confident when it comes to defeating Killua. Illumi even chooses to confront Killua, and Hisoka also talks about killing Killua as if it was nothing for him. Now this does look pretty bad for Killua at first glance, I'll admit, but it's important to note that neither of them have seen Killua's Whirlwind, which is, if you were listening, the main thing that makes Killua so overpowered. And Killua during this entire arc is also in a heavily disadvantageous position, as he has to focus on protecting Aluka, who by the way has a regular durability, which makes it possible for Aluka to literally just die in the crossfire if a fight was to ensue. So if Killua was to fight Illumi or Hisoka, it would essentially just be a situation where Killua would have to, babysit Aluka the whole fight and make sure that she gets hit by nothing. For those reasons, I don't really think that Killua's power level has been retconned since Chimera Ant arc, as some people believe. So, from what I've said so far, it should be obvious that the best attribute that Killua has is his speed. And it's not just a category that he's above average in. His speed, whilst using Whirlwind, is outright on a completely different level to almost all the other characters in the verse, with the exceptions really only being guys like Meruem, Netero and Adult Gon, who should scale even beyond Killua in that regard. Now, in a verse like Hunter x Hunter, where your durability is determined mainly by what's your physical body made out of, as seen with the durable ant exoskeletons for example, and secondly, it's determined by what Nen category you fall under, as the closer you are to enhancement, the more you can enhance your base durability. AP matters far less than speed does in this verse. Who hits their opponent first will usually determine the winner of the fight, because each character usually has enough AP to hurt the other opponent, excluding of course for some outliers like Uvo or other tanky characters. Given his feats, Killua with his attacks will be able to get through almost anyone's durability, especially since we have seen him paralyzing and pushing back Yuppie, who's not only insane when it comes to Nen amount, but he's also a transmuter, which means he has 80% efficiency in enhancement. So whether Killua can hit his opponents before they hit him is by far the more important question here. And now it's time for me to get even more controversial. As it stands, almost no one in the verse can react to Whirlwind Killua's speed. And frankly, most of the popular characters would have major problems even with just speed of lightning alone. Essentially anyone below Royal Guard who isn't an enhancer or at least a transmuter with really good durability feats is getting hands from Whirlwind Killua, and there's nothing they can do about it. Whether we are talking about Phantom Troop members like Nobunaga, Feita and Finks, or even Chrollo and Illumi, or we are talking about Knuckle, Morel or Zoldyck, these characters point blank do not have the speed scaling to remotely hang with Killua, assuming that Killua goes Whirlwind right off the bat. Now the important question is, how likely is Killua to start the fight by going into the Whirlwind? We haven't seen that many Killua fights after he learns Godspeed. He fought Palm, he fought Yuppie, and he kinda fought Poof. In 2 out of 3 of these he goes into Whirlwind right from the get-go. But those 2 fights are also ones where he's facing a Royal Guard, someone who he knows is generally much stronger than he is. So that really doesn't answer whether he will go Whirlwind right off the bat against someone like Silva, Illumi, Hisoka or others that he doesn't really think are stronger by ungodly amounts. So there's a pretty likely scenario that if Killua fights someone who he doesn't consider to be that stronger than he is himself, that he will just choose to stay in base and try to see what his opponent's moves are first. In such scenarios, characters like Hisoka, Illumi, Silva, Zeno, Razor might actually be able to end the fight before Killua goes Godspeed. In a situation where Killua starts with Godspeed and uses Whirlwind, Killua wins. Now, irregardless of how someone structures their tier list, Meruem should always be obviously on the top. In the next tier, you would have Adult Gon, Royal Guards, Netero, perhaps also Jink and Botobai, who've got some incredible hype. And then, Killua sits at the top of the tier directly below this one. In the tier alongside Killua, you could throw in names like Beyond Netero, Bisky, Kite, Chrollo, and some others. The thing they got in common is that they don't have any reaction feats that would allow them to react to speed that even Yuppie could not follow. And they also don't have a hype ridiculous enough for me to forgive them for that, like I did for some of the characters in the tier above. So there's that, in before Chrollo and Hisoka fans go crazy. Listen, if you disagree, let me know in the comments why. And that's it for this video, so I'll see you in the next one. See ya!